My name is Agnieszka Nnolim. I specialize in the documentation of consumer products, raw materials, and finished products. This involves the toxicological assessment of substances, raw materials, and final finished products, especially cosmetics, but not only. These are also toys, household products, accessories, biocides, detergents, cleaning agents, as well as medical devices, particularly class 1 medical devices. Let's look at the regulatory map in the European Union. What is worth paying attention to and monitoring? First of all, the basic legal act, the regulation on safety and market rules for cosmetics, of course, right? One of the oldest regulations, which was created in the 1970s and based on Napatata. Initially, it was a directive. Now it is a regulation, but the text and structure of the law, the REACH regulation, are primarily based on this directive. Also, one of the oldest legal regulations concerning cosmetics, such a gold standard. The European Union is working on regulations regarding environmental claims, namely the directive on so-called green claims and the impact of chemicals, which is the chemical strategy within the REACH regulation. It's worth following. And of course, it's worth following the ban on microplastics, which is an additional regulation limiting the use of many intentionally added microplastic particles. So this is the European Union. I encourage. Let's look at the regulatory map concerning the United States. The FDA regulates cosmetics under the Food, Drug, and Cosmetic Act. The law, which came into effect in 2022, expanded the competencies of the FDA. There is registration of facilities, reporting of adverse events, product listings, but there are still no federal bans for many chemical substances. There are guidelines from the Federal Trade Commission regarding ecology, which define the use of environmental claims in marketing. These are guidelines in the form of a guide. Okay, what does the map look like? Asian, so to speak, also selected markets, China. In China, the National Medical Products Administration has been regulating chemical substances and cosmetic products in China since the year 2021. Changes in the safety assessment of cosmetics and the abolition of mandatory animal testing for some products. Not for everyone. So it's easier, but there are still those barriers of animal testing and, of course, the huge costs associated with it. And time, right? Imagine to prove whether a chemical substance or a cosmetic product is not carcinogenic. The minimum scope of animal testing is 2 years. Also a somewhat outdated approach to proving that a product or substance is not carcinogenic. For example, what trends exist in Asia? More and more countries are banning microbeds and microplastics.
considers limitations.
Substance from the group. In short, South Korea, Japan, India, and a group of countries under the name EURChem are developing their own list and regulations regarding ingredients and packaging.
Personal computer equipment allows me to work on the registration conditions number 1902X, searching for models. I don't know if this concerns you, but I think everything is fine here.
And right here, I encourage you to listen to this quite interesting video from such a worst case scenario. Są również kluczowe dla produkcji półprzewodników i innych materiałów istotnych dla zielonej transformacji. Ale to, co czyni je tak praktycznymi i wszechobecnymi w produktach, których używamy, jest również tym, co czyni je tak szkodliwymi. They are resistant to water, oil, and temperature changes, but they don't break down in the environment and are now associated with health issues ranging from decreased fertility to cancer. They can also be found in our food and drinking water. Traces of PFAS have been found in the blood of 97% of Americans. A nutrient-rich byproduct of municipal wastewater is sewage sludge or biosolids. These biosolids are sometimes used as a fertilizer. In the United States, for example, it's thought that this has been spread across about 5% of the country's farmland. Forever chemicals have been found in this sludge. The worry is that as they don't break down, they become concentrated over time, circulating through our fertilizers, water, food, and bodies. PFAS pollution from industrial sites and firefighting foam have also contaminated our soil and water supplies. These harmful chemicals could be around for millennia unless we can find ways to destroy them. Increasing pressure from lawmakers to ban or restrict PFAS has prompted a startup race to find technology either to replace them, which for some industries such as semiconductors could be nearly impossible, or at least to eradicate those already in the environment. Revive Environmental, based in Michigan, has a machine they call the Annihilator that uses a technique called supercritical water oxidation and acts as a kind of pressure cooker to break apart the chemicals. Vector, a water treatment company, uses plasma technology where high-energy electrons obliterate the chemicals. Researchers have also joined the cause. Studies have shown that a charcoal-like substance made from waste timbers can absorb the chemicals from sewage sludge for them to be destroyed. Meanwhile, American chemists from Northwestern and Los Angeles University have developed an inexpensive and low-energy process that breaks down two of the most critical types of PFAS into harmless chemicals. A team at the University of California uses ultraviolet light to break them down without producing any byproducts. And another team at the university have found soil bacteria that can do something similar. Getting rid of the various types of forever chemicals will require different methods and be far from easy. Many of these methods look promising, but all require a lot more time and investment to be effective. But for those willing to take on the challenge, a market worth a potential $20 billion is up for grabs.
Yes, so the worst case scenario of very persistent substances, perfluoralkyl and polyfluoralkyl substances, why they are persistent, and substances that do not biodegrade, because looking at the chemistry, the chemical structure, it is a single carbon fluorine bond. A covalent bond. In a covalent bond, electrons in the outer shell of an atom exchange energetically and thus form a very solid and strong bond structure. That is why this is the worst case scenario of substances that are persistent and remain in the human body and the environment and are practically everywhere with us, even in food, also in cosmetics, everywhere, just everywhere.
But the good news is that
The Americans already have some solutions on how to dispose of these substances and break them down into their basic components so that they ultimately do not remain in our bodies, and I mean to minimize the amount in our bodies and in the environment. But let's look at the European Union and at the most important things. The scope and enforcement of the Green Claims Directive, that is in the law on environmental claims, are still under negotiation. It is not known which claims will require mandatory external verification. Exceptions and reporting obligations with the ban on microplastics. It's unclear what they will be, how borderline ingredients, glitters, polymers in stabilizers will be treated. There are many of these.
there are no clear guidelines.
The chemical strategy, and of course perfluoroalkyl and polyfluoroalkyl substances, PFASs, as the lady nicely mentioned here. Further bans are also planned, but the timelines and permissible concentrations have not yet been established. This is the state in the European Union, but what is the situation in America? Well, there are gaps in the implementation of regulations. The FDA has new powers, but the pace of introducing bans on acids or microplastics is, well, uncertain. Everything is ongoing and there are no clear guidelines. There are state discrepancies. For example, California acts faster than federal law, creating a patchwork of regulations. Standards for ecological claims. There is no clarity on how new claims like zero waste or microplastic free will be evaluated. Every country, every continent struggles with these things. What's happening in Asia, China, animal testing and documentation. It's not always clear what the evaluated new slogan means. It's not always clear which data will be considered sufficient. Even though there is a lot of talk about it, we don't fully know what will be accepted and what is not allowed to be provided at all. Of course, forever chemicals, microplastics, various definitions and implementation schedules, lack of consistency in standards, data vis-a-vis, vice versa, trade secret. Some countries require complete raw data, which raises the question of protecting know-how. Confessions, challenges beyond regional, evidence of sustainability. Will full life cycle analysis be required? Will a simplified version suffice? Harmonization, vice versa, fragmentation. Will markets move towards a common list of banned substances, or will each go their own way, right? In the European Union, we have about 2,000 banned substances. In America, we have individual guidelines. Each state has its own regulation. There is no main single list. So will it eventually come to having one global list of banned substances? analytical standards, lack of uniform testing methods for microplastics, PFAS or asbestos. Who will pay for environmental cleanup? For example, in the European Union, there is consideration of charging cosmetic manufacturers for the costs of removing pollutants from water. Here I already see opposition in the industry. Well, it's not the best solution for the industry to bear the costs, but it's not entirely clear who will bear these costs. What are the practical conclusions for companies, for the cosmetics industry and the chemical industry in general? It is definitely worth investing in data.
And additionally, have a life cycle analysis.
Substance, raw material, product, because it will put you in a better position and your products will be more competitive. So definitely a life cycle analysis, whether simplified or extended, is worth looking into. Primarily work with suppliers. It's worth requiring certificates of compliance from them with different markets. And if you have a problem or encounter problems in this area, feel free to contact us. We issue certificates of compliance regarding recycling and renewable products, renewable raw materials and ingredients that meet the requirements of a sustainable environment. And above all, tracking local regulations, for example, in California, Chinese provinces, or in India. If you decide to send your products there, stricter regulations may apply than centrally in India or America. What should be observed in the near future in the European Union? Progress or delays in the directive concerning green claims? The next stages of the microplastic ban. Decisions regarding forever chemicals, which were covered in a video as part of the REACH regulation, that is the environmental regulation. In the United States, it is definitely necessary to monitor the implementation of the WETCH cosmetic regulation from FDA guidelines on asbestos testing, forever chemicals testing, and product lists. Legislative actions of individual states are not just in the USA, but states like California or other places. In China, on the other hand, new announcements regarding the safety assessment of cosmetics. Will all cosmetics be exempt from animal testing soon? I hope so. I hope so. And open questions for all of us. What methods of microplastic testing, acids will be required? Will life cycle analysis be mandatory or just recommended? There is still no clarity on this topic. Will there be a harmonization of the list of banned substances globally? How will the cost of environmental cleanup be divided? Who will bear the costs? Perhaps the consumer, the user? And what level of transparency in composition will become the standard, right? is every piece of information regarding the raw material will be transparent and disclosed, provided to the manufacturer, including toxicological and clinical studies, which aim to prove the function of a given ingredient in a specific product group for a specific target group.
Pregnant women or children or people who are going through
oncology therapy. Will this information be available to all of us, especially to manufacturers, for the L&D departments that create a product and at the same time ensure that the product meets the definition of a cosmetic product, which is tasked with beautifying and caring for the human body? Also, I invited you to discussion, to talks. I don't know how you see it. Who should bear the costs for disposal and environmental cleanup? How to distribute it? Is it really only the final product manufacturer, or perhaps each of us to some extent, especially producers? Cosmetic raw materials, right? Cosmetic substances, manufacturers of finished products, and US users. So it's like teamwork, team effort, but it requires discussion, agreements, exchange of opinions, and a common joint solution. I invite you to ask questions if you have any. Thank you for being here. But if you want to ask any questions or share any reflections, please feel free. What are you primarily struggling with now? Are these indeed environmental claims or perhaps other issues? So please take a moment, think about it in your free time. I invite you to ask questions. I invite you to discussion. I also invite you to critical thinking. It's also quite a nice way of seeking solutions. I wouldn't be here today if it weren't for the team of specialists from Krakow. Wonderful people who specialize in the documentation of chemical raw materials, in toxicological documentation, in toxicological assessment, safety assessment of all substances and various types of products. But they particularly specialize and have wonderful communication skills. Also, customer care for the client is at a high level. So I invite you. I wish you an enjoyable experience and invite you to the next presentations of wonderful presenters. Thank you.